Part 23. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 222. It was raining, and the notebook had already found a wooden board to hide it. Jia Yan's huge body was bathed in the rain in this bush. Drops of rain and dew fell on his head. This was the first time in Jia Yan's life that he could enjoy the touch of raindrops so peacefully. This touch was very strange. He who should have strong defense should not be able to feel the feeling of rain, but at this time, Jia Yan still felt the feeling of rain. Fantastic! There is a feeling of wiping away all the dust from the soul. Drops of raindrops, like pearl agate, falling down bit by bit. Jia Yan looked up at the sky above his head. At this time, he could feel the low temperature in the rain, but he could still bear it, and he was letting his body remember this cold impression. He probably knew that if he mutated, he would mutate according to his biological instinct, just like the mutation when he sucked the black liquid, because it happened to be an explosion at that time, and then his body was hit by countless cave stones, so after that he mutated into his strong defense. After that time, he completely changed the insect's life. He has been relying on strong defense until this time. So Jia Yan was wondering, if he allowed his body to remember the feeling of coldness now, would it be his mutation next time, due to the biological instinct to adjust the direction? Will his body become more resistant to cold? So Jia Yan is bearing it. If it hadn't gotten dark soon, he would have thought of going to the top of the freezing rain to feel how cold it would be if the freezing rain and the high altitude combined. It might as well increase your ability to resist the cold when your body mutates. But now is not that time. The sky is getting darker little by little. Jia Yan's compound eyes gradually began to sparkle in the darkening night. Finally, just when the sky turned completely dark, the giant mosquito stood up from the ground. A pair of wings trembled slightly. His compound eyes were still looking at the research institute in the distance. Today is when I continue to harass him, and I hope it won't take a few days to reach the conclusion I have now. Jia Yan slowly opened his wings. Give it a tap. Buzz buzz. The body of the giant mosquito slowly turned towards the sky with freezing rain falling above its head. Soar up. Yin 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 yin. He was getting faster and faster. Distance from the institute. It's just a few kilometers away. It doesn't take him a few minutes to get there now. Soon, the big mosquito's body flew to an altitude of 2,000 meters. This place was beyond the reach of the thing last time. He was about 2,000 meters away. Finally flying over the research institute. The research institute buildings below appear to be very small. After all, 2,000 meters in the air is already an extremely high place. Due to Jia Yan's attack, this research institute has been completely closed. Originally, he wanted to sneak in to investigate. It is impossible to realize, presumably he wants to see the research on those metal monsters. Even if it does exist, it must have been transferred or hidden by the researchers at this time. But those things no longer matter, something more interesting to Jia Yan has appeared here. This is the one that can attack him using sound. The creature or something that almost made him faint. This thing is definitely very powerful, not to mention his voice attack. Even Jia Yan, who has already tried it once, can't guarantee that he will not faint if he tries it again. Jia Yan estimated that he was in good shape last time. Or when his willpower is just high, if it were any other time, he wouldn't be sure whether he would be able to hold on. Fortunately, he has already tasted that feeling once, and Jia Yan will not let himself fall into such a dangerous situation again. Now that he was flying at an altitude of 2,000 meters, Jia Yan estimated that the existence of his arrival should have been discovered a long time ago, but he did not send out his metal piece to attack him again. Jia Yanfu's eyes were shining brightly. He was analyzing whether it was because the opponent no longer sent out his metal substance at this time because a certain energy was not enough, or because there was only one piece of the metal substance left, and he did not want to let Jia Yan, his opponent, find out the details, so he decided not to act. Jia Yan couldn't figure out what the other party was thinking, but if the other party didn't launch an attack, then he would force the other party to do it. Jia Yan's compound eyes are brighter. He started flying downwards. You must be prepared. You just won't be provoked by me. After all, if I want to attack you, I can only attack you at close range, right? As long as I dare to descend, you will definitely show off that powerful sound attack again. Then seriously injure me. Jia Yan can guess what the opponent is thinking, and this idea is a conspiracy. If Jia Yan wants to attack this creature, then he must descend, but if he descends to a certain level, it will not be Jia Yan attacking the opponent, but the opponent could easily use his weird voice attack to severely injure Jia Yan. But would Jia Yan come if he had not made preparations? Obviously he will not do useless work. So at this moment, Jia Yan had two small pebbles shining with blue-gray luster in his front feet. Jia Yan continued to descend, and he thought with a smile in his heart. He never imagined that this thing, a mosquito monster evolved from the Earth world, could actually have long-range attacks, right? Whoosh 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 whoosh. The speed of the giant mosquito's downward thrust quickly exceeded the speed of sound. His speed has been getting faster and faster. After absorbing part of the remaining azure mutation effect in the grove near his hometown last time, his speed has increased to a new level. Moreover, after so many breakthroughs in sonic flight, this flight method and wing force method have been optimized and trained by Jia Yan to a higher level, so now he is faster. Especially when diving, with the help of the Earth's gravity, the speed is extremely fast. Boom boom boom. The strong wind brought by the giant mosquito violently swept the surrounding air. The air oscillated and formed a shock wave. Jia Yan couldn't estimate his speed during the dive. After all, he had no comparison object, so he didn't know how fast he was going now, but he definitely exceeded the speed of 2,000 kilometers per hour. And at such a diving speed, for a ground of 2,000 meters, it reaches almost instantly. Jia Yan is encouraging himself to never reach the ground directly. It can't be lower than 100 meters. There is a favorable home court for the opponent. 1,300 meters. 1,000 meters. 700 meters. 300 meters. Finally, we were about 200 meters above the ground. Jia Yan seemed to have heard a huge roar sounding violently in his mind. But at this moment, Jia Yan dropped a small bluish-gray stone with his foot and threw it away. Then he controlled his body crazily and made an upward U-turn in mid-air. However, with such a huge dive force and such a fast speed, even though Jia Yan's body was already extremely flexible, he still had to let his body fall to about 150 meters before he felt the upward force. That is at this place 450 meters high. Yin 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 yin. An extremely sharp voice, almost made Jia Yan fall down on the spot. But at this time, Jia Yan had a huge motivation and forced himself to fly. I survived the previous time, but this time I didn't fall to the ground. Is there any reason why I can't persevere? Last time it was even more exaggerated than this time, but I still got through it. This time it doesn't make sense, so I can't hold on. The cruel look in Jia Yanfu's eyes was extremely conspicuous. So the moment he was hit by this force, his whole body just shook, and then he started flying forward again. The blue-gray pebble that was thrown down followed the route set by Jia Yan and flew towards the building where Jia Yan believed that the creature was most likely to exist. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 223. It was a building with a height of more than 10 meters. This building seemed to have only one floor, without any windows or doors. It seemed to be an inaccessible building. But there must be ways to enter, such as through underground passages or hidden doors. But at least to the naked eye, this building is indeed very strange. and the sense of crisis that Jia Yan has always felt seems to come from this building. As Jia Yan's body dropped rapidly and the small blue-gray stone was thrown at low altitude, the strange creature or something was simply too late to summon his metal material to block the small blue-gray stone for defense. Jia Yan only saw a piece of metal flashing from the sky behind him, chasing the blue-gray pebbles thrown towards him. However, even though this metallic substance has a flying speed that is 3 times faster than the speed of sound, there is still a slight speed gap when faced with the blue-gray pebbles thrown by Jia Yan at a speed of 2,000 km per hour. Moreover, the low-altitude bluish-gray pebbles only hit the ground in an instant. That creature or whatever it was, obviously didn't think that the things Jia Yan threw down would be useless, so even though it was obvious that it couldn't catch up, it still pursued it frantically. Obviously, the speed of blue-gray pebbles is much faster than that of metal substances. Just when the opponent's figure was surveying and chasing behind the blue-gray pebbles, the pebbles had already hit the building where Jia Yan thought the opponent's lair was located with an indomitable momentum. A striking light suddenly bloomed in this rainy night. Boom! It was like a huge firework exploded in the night sky. The flames of this firework swallowed up an area of several hundred meters in an instant. The fiery red light reflected the earth in a bright red color, and something like a mushroom cloud rose slowly in the night. Although it is much smaller than the power of the Japanese nuclear bomb, it is this light at this time. It is still a key point that determines victory or defeat. Boom boom boom. The light continued to shine, and some gravel flew between the sky and the earth along the light. However, the creator of the explosion at this time, Jia Yan, quickly rose into the sky. At this time, he was still suffering from the sound attack of that thing. But at this time he had already broken through the most dangerous distance of 100 meters in an instant. After breaking through 100 meters, he was affected by the oscillating sound and crashed into the wall surrounding the research institute. Boom boom. The giant mosquito knocked down the entire wall, filling the sky with smoke and dust. The big mosquito then flew up into the sky with a gray face. The wings were beating continuously, and the big mosquito was flying quickly between the sky and the earth. He looked at the scenery below with compound eyes, but his body quickly got rid of the influence of the sound and broke through to an altitude of about 1,000 meters. This place is the limit of the impact that sound can have. Jia Yan felt the influence of the sound on his body. Until now, he still didn't know what the sound was, but he was able to make a correct judgment, that is, the range of influence of the sound would not exceed 1,000 meters at most. Although it can be heard from places 1,000 meters away, at least for him, it is no longer a very big impact. /U0026N BSP, Jia Yan was looking down from 1,000 meters in the air. The explosion scene below is still continuing. After all, Jia Yan suddenly jumped to an altitude of 1,000 meters, and not much time has passed. It is normal that there are still explosions below. And the building didn't know if there was something that triggered the explosion, and it exploded all of a sudden. In the firelight, there was a slight angry roaring from the ground. Pieces of gravel were shot everywhere in the sky and the earth. The height of the sputtering is actually 1,000 meters high. But Jia Yan is in the compound eyes. He didn't pay attention to the huge impact of the explosion. He knew that the thing, or creature, was attacking him. In this explosion, his true face may appear. Jia Yan does not think that the other party will be injured by this attack. After all, even if he is in the center of the explosion, he will be seriously injured at most and cannot die. And there is a thing or creature that makes him, Jia Yan, so afraid. It's impossible to die so easily. Sure enough, under the faint attention of Jia Yan's compound eyes, a dark metal substance suddenly stabbed towards Jia Yan at a speed that exceeded the speed of sound in the flames. Sure enough, it appeared Jia Yan looked at the metal substance. This metal substance was the same prismatic metal substance that he fought with last time. He got another piece last time, but this time he didn't see any metal material when he came here. But at this time, metallic substances appeared. Jia Yan looked at this metal substance, and something he had been unsure about was finally verified. That is this metal substance. Is the other party infinite? It seems that is not the case. Two pieces of metal were chasing him last time, but now only the one left last time is left. Does this mean that this creature only has this piece of metal as a means of survival, and now it is forced by the power of his own explosion? I used this backhand directly. However, it is also possible that the opponent is using a tactic of suspicion. After all, he obviously has a certain amount of wisdom. Jia Yan looked at the metal object that was stabbing him. Although the opponent was extremely fast, how could Jia Yan, who had experienced facing two pieces of metal, be hurt by just one piece of metal? So he immediately made a giant pirouette, and his body flying in the sky completely made an action that violated the laws of physics. Moreover, this action was followed by a difficult turn back. However, the piece of metal following him is also a speed shot, and his basic speed is faster than Jia Yan, so although he feels a little jerky in flying, his rotation speed is not slower than Jia Yan's. How many? However, Jia Yan is a real flying creature. He is able to make incredible flying movements at this time. Coupled with his increasingly wise brain, in fact, his movements have never been repetitive. In mid-air, the big mosquito was chasing the metal material, but his eyes were still staring at the ruins of the building below. Smoke and dust were still filling the air, but the shadow of the building slowly appeared in outline. The rain at this time was getting heavier and heavier. The sound of dripping water echoed throughout the land. Sometimes there is extremely huge movement on the battlefield, but sometimes the movement is extremely small, so at this time on the battlefield, there is a bit of eerie quietness, and people who have not actually faced similar situations will not understand this matter. r/U003E. When everyone talks about wars and battles, they think they are bloody battles, always a baptism of blood and fire. However, no one knows that the strange silence in this kind of battle is actually a unique scenery. Especially when a giant mosquito like Jia Yan fights other monsters, their battles are no less noisy than those of human armies, but when they are quiet, they are even quieter. Jia Yan listened to the whistling of the wind in his ears. He didn't look at the piece of metal chasing behind him with his compound eyes, staring directly downwards. That place is full of strange aura, and the aura is even more obvious. Finally, the smoke and dust faded away little by little under the wash of rain. At this time, the damaged building also appeared in front of Jia Yan. It has lost less than half of its building parts. It is obvious that this building was built with sufficient building materials, so even if half of it has collapsed, more than half of it is still holding on strong, with no signs of collapse. Jia Yan saw in an instant that there was a huge thing in this half-collapsed building, which reflected the faint light of the night. At this moment, Jia Yan only felt a numbness on his scalp, and an unbelievable look emerged from the bottom of his heart. Almost at this moment when his mind was shocked, he was about to be chased by the metal substance behind him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 224. Fortunately, Jia Yan responded directly at this moment, lowered his head and rushed downwards, avoiding the pursuing metal material. But his mind was still in shock. What on earth is this? The intense look of disbelief in his expression was beyond words. Apart from shock, Jia Yan had no words to describe his current expression. Howl, 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 howl. The giant mosquito made a long-distance flight in the air. This long-distance flight directly flew out of the range of 2,000 meters. There was a situation where the last time the induction was too far and Jia Yan got a piece of metal material. The metallic substance immediately stopped pursuing him. When Zhang Gan reached a distance of 2,000 meters, he stopped. From extreme motion to extreme stillness, this metallic substance took less than a second, as if it could truly violate the rules of nature. But Jia Yan has no time to marvel at the wonder of this metallic substance. After he broke through the distance of 2,000 meters, he turned around and looked at the damaged building. In that building, a huge and strange thing appeared there. Something Jia Yan couldn't even imagine appeared in that place. Although Jia Yan knew that this place was a secret research institute of China and that there might be things like metal monsters, he never thought that there would be such a thing in this place. There was a faint luster in Jia Yan's eyes, and this luster was filled with an expression of disbelief. To be honest, he wouldn't be too surprised if a huge metal monster or some other huge monster appeared below. But now in this building, something that is reasonable but unbelievable appears, which kind of surprised Jia Yan. On the ground 2,000 meters away, among the collapsed buildings, a shining thing appeared there. It has a streamlined body. The whole body is flat, and his whole body is almost an absolute circle. And there is a slightly convex arc in the middle. It is about 20 meters in diameter, with a streamlined body that is shiny and metallic but not quite like it. If there is a mystery lover in this place, then he must be extremely excited. Because this thing is a flying saucer that has been confirmed to exist on Earth, but no more information about it can be obtained. That is to say, unexpectedly, under this building, there was not some strange creature as Jia Yan thought, nor something similar to the mysterious machinery in the underground world. But this. It seems to be in line with Jia Yan's guess, but it is really such a wonderful thing, flying saucer. There was a look of disbelief in Jia Yan's eyes. To be honest, the appearance of this flying saucer seems to be consistent with some truth. After all, the appearance of metal monsters and the mysterious machinery in the underground world all indicate that these things have certain high technologies. If you add this now, then there is an explanation. Those metal monsters definitely have something to do with the flying saucers in this building. It's actually possible. It's too risky. I have to go back and think about it, and I always feel that this is extremely dangerous. Jia Yan was at an altitude of 2,000 meters. When this whole body appeared in his sight, a creepy feeling appeared in his heart, as if only that person could make some attack. He will be easily torn to pieces. /U003E. So when his heart suddenly flashes, he flies backwards slowly. But Jia Yan was willing to leave, but the one who revealed his true identity refused to let him leave just like that. I saw this weird artifact. The figure suspended in mid-air slowly began to rotate. The speed of his rotation is not very fast, and there is a slight defect on the lower part of the watch. If you look carefully, you can see that this defect can be made up for by the few pieces of metal material in Jia Yan's hand. Especially a defect in that prismatic shape. It seems to be an important part. This part happens to be compensated by the piece of metal material that attacked Jia Yan, so when Jia Yan comes over tonight, it seems that it will not dare to send any more metal material to attack. But the current one has a faint stream of light on its surface, and then turns around little by little in the void. Finally, he pointed a certain part of his surface in the direction of Jia Yan. At least Jia Yan can't tell how this superficial place is different from other places. But this did not prevent the sense of crisis in Jia Yan's heart from becoming extremely violent at this time. Not good. He screamed in his heart. Hoo. The big mosquito's body made a disguised evasive action at the moment when it instinctively sensed danger. And at this moment, a circular gap suddenly appeared on the body surface of that person. The emergence of this gap is directly like a long and slender thing sticking out. Then, at the tip of the slender thing, a pale light quickly condensed. Immediately afterwards, this pale light spurted out in the direction of Jia Yan with a bang. Bo! This light, that is real light. Speed is directly the speed of light. How fast does light travel? Everyone who has gone to school has learned that the speed of light is basically equivalent to 300,000 kilometers per second. It's equivalent to flying from the Earth to the Moon in 1 second. The space tools used by humans on Earth can reach places that take several days to fly at the speed of light in just 1 second. And now, a pale light with the same speed of light is attacking Jiayan. Quick. It's simply not something that can be described in terms of speed. The place where light can fly in 1 second, Jiayan would have to fly for more than a month even if he didn't eat or drink, even if he used the strength of eating milk, he could fly that far. It's not a comparison of magnitude at all. Even though Jiayan had already moved his body a little bit at this moment when the opponent showed his attack. But that light, which could not be described by speed at all, still broke through the vast rainy night at this moment, and came directly in front of him. Even if he comes in front of Jiayan, it is impossible for Jiayan to see the light. He only felt that his body seemed to be penetrated by something all of a sudden. Cloth defense, no. Exoskeleton defense is useless. Those azure defenses, at this moment, had no time to react. In one fell swoop, Jiayan's right wing was completely penetrated. Fortunately, Jiayan had already left the place beforehand and avoided some distance. Otherwise, this ray of light would have penetrated his entire chest. I can't resist, the level gap is too big. The feeling of fear in Jiayan's heart arose from the bottom of his heart. At this time, his long-lost fear reappeared. All this time, that little mosquito, from being cautious at first, gradually grew up and became bolder little by little. Until recently, Jiayan found that he seemed to have no fear. The single person is almost invincible on the earth, which makes him complacent and a bit arrogant. Just like in this research institute, he had long felt the dangerous aura, and even his body was trying hard to prevent him from coming to this place, but Jiayan still came. It is because of his pride that he thinks that nothing on this earth can threaten him. At least it won't be possible to eliminate him at once. But now that he saw this plane, Jiayan realized that the world was far from as simple as he thought. There are still a lot of things that can kill him easily. But now I know that it seems to be too late to. Jiayan looked down, and there was a faint flash of brilliance in that slender thing, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. Is this the end of his mosquito body? He was a little depressed. He still had many ways to enhance this body. There were still so many mysterious things in this world waiting for him to discover, but he was going to die in this place? Jiayan was unwilling to give in. He flapped his wings desperately, as if he could avoid the pale light. But that's impossible. With a speed of 300,000 kilometers per second, how could he compare to a giant mosquito whose fastest speed is around 2,000 kilometers per hour? The difference is too big. This seems to be the final burial place of Jiayan, the big mosquito. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 225. Jiayan is waiting to die with his eyes closed. With such a level of attack, it seems that for this big mosquito, there is nothing else to do but wait for death. Yes, it is basically a super powerful attack at the speed of light. In Jiayan's view, it is an attack form that is impossible to dodge and cannot resist. That pale light is becoming more and more prosperous, more and more prosperous. Just when the white color was extremely bright and the light was about to pour out. But in the place where white light was emitted, the gap that opened the hole seemed to have suddenly lost its source of energy. The light that lit up directly flashed an unstable light wave, and then in a not very pleasant sound, just like this, it becomes dim. Bobo. It seems that the so-called one is still trying hard to launch an attack, but there is no white emission from the hole he opened. At this moment, Jiayan suddenly came to his senses from the state of waiting for death, and the light in his eyes flashed. Is there no energy? Or is it something else? No matter what the situation is, it will definitely be very dangerous for me to stay. Since the opponent has not launched an attack, Jia Yan's excitement has become extremely strong. At this time, he will not make any plans to actively attack. After all, this is too weird. At this time, he does not have more information about the opponent. It is impossible for him to take the initiative to attack anything. If he has other means of attack, he will die. So after Jia Yan saw that the opponent could no longer attack with that pale white light, his wings quickly used his unprecedented power. Fast beat. At this time, Jia Yan doesn't care about so much. His physical strength and other things are all matters after saving his life. After all, life is the first priority. Howl, 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 howl. The body of the giant mosquito flew rapidly in the night sky. He keeps retreating, retreating desperately. When passing his temporary residence, if he hadn't looked back and saw the frame in the faint night light, he returned to the depths of his building that was missing a corner, and seemed to no longer attack him, so he scurried down in embarrassment. Hoo hoo. The giant mosquito used crazy speed to sort out everything. Just fly. The huge body no longer cared about its own body at this time and started flying at supersonic speeds. Howl, 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 howl. A series of sounds sounded quickly in the night, and then disappeared quickly in the night. The speed of giant mosquitoes reaches unprecedented limits. Yes, he's on the run. To put it nicely, it's a strategic retreat. Feeling that embarrassed, he was almost frightened by the speed of his escape. At this time, his explosive power might exceed a speed of 2,000 meters per hour. And this is also the case when the wings are injured. The strong wind was blowing in his ears, and the heavy rain around him was pouring down. The sound of raindrops echoing in the sky and the earth seemed to laugh at him, a big mosquito, for not overestimating his capabilities. Jia Yan did feel this way. He understood that he was nothing in front of this person, if it hadn't been for the other party not emitting light all of a sudden. He must be dead. The powerful heart he evolved was constantly beating up and down. At this time, his heart seemed to be reflecting its own strength, transporting blood to all parts of the body. In fact, it was because Jia Yan was too frightened. Wait, that's not right. In mid-air, Jia Yan's body paused slightly. He thought of some details. Thinking about these details carefully, they gathered into fragments little by little. These fragments made Jia Yan's flying speed gradually slow down. If he had the means to kill me from the beginning, then why did he use those pieces of metal to attack me? Wouldn't it be better to just come forward and kill me with the light? And when he appeared before, he fired at the light, the biological instinctive fear I felt from him, was simply much less. Jia Yan thought about some details, which seemed to point to an answer. That is. In fact, this was just a pretense before. Perhaps his real trump card was the pale light from before. But when this light didn't hit him, his method was simply gone, or in other words, it was much less powerful. Otherwise, how could he give up the last opportunity to attack Jia Yan? Jia Yan didn't think that the other party wanted to let him go, so he fired that ray of light. But it's impossible for him to go back at this time. Jia Yan doesn't think that this thing is what it seems, and there is no other backup plan. If he has other means, returning is just seeking death. So even if Jia Yan has thought at this time that it may not be able to emit that kind of light infinitely, and it may even be able to emit only that one ray of light, but he really doesn't have the courage to go back and deal with it. So now he is still flying forward awkwardly. But the good thing is, after thinking about this clearly, he returned his compound eyes and looked behind him. The research institute on that rainy night was no longer visible in the darkness, and his flight suddenly became smoother. Facing that pale light, that feeling of no possibility of resistance was probably the first time he felt it after becoming stronger. But at this time, after he was no longer so afraid, he was thinking about other issues. What on earth is this thing? Could it really be what humans call mysterious flying objects? That is, but the feeling I just had just now didn't seem right. The so-called are the magical things that have been recorded in the history of civilization for thousands of years on Earth. This thing appeared on the Earth a long time ago. At that time, the technological strength of the people on Earth was far from as powerful as it is now. But at that time, humans had already observed these magical things in the sky. They were always hovering and flying in the sky, leaving traces in their eyes. There are too many sightings of these things, too many for humans to ignore. About 1/3 of the countries in the world are conducting research on these unidentified flying objects that cannot be denied by the scientific community. This also shows in disguise that almost all countries in the world are affirmative of the existence of this thing. Attitude. The mysterious thing Jia Yan saw was very similar to the most famous and classic flying saucer. In other words, it might be that flying saucer. In fact, at this time, it is very possible to discover a flying saucer, and it is not unreasonable. But when this legendary thing really appears in front of you, it is normal for Jia Yan to feel a little shocked. After all, he used to be an Earthling, so he must have been shocked for a short time when he saw this mythical thing. But seeing it means seeing it. No matter how incredible Jia Yan finds it, no matter whether he thinks this kind of thing really should exist in reality, now that he has seen it, he can only affirm his existence and then find a way to deal with it. That's right, what Jia Yan wants to do is deal with. At this time, has returned to his original state of mind. After all, he is not a character who is easily frightened. Now that he has recovered from the near-death situation, he naturally recalls a series of details one by one. Jia Yan was thinking in his mind while flying in the air away from Qinghai Lake, where the research institute is located. One of his wings was pierced by the pale white light, but it only caused a hole about 15 centimeters in diameter. Fortunately, the hole was only so big, so Jia Yan could still fly without being affected. This light did not seem to be emitted to deal with creatures of Jia Yan's level. After piercing Jia Yan's body, it shot all the way into space, and it was unknown where it would end up. Anyway, under this attack, Jia Yan really didn't feel very good. Every time he encountered an opponent in the past, he had some feelings that aroused fighting passion, but now facing this, he really didn't resist at all. No strength can be generated. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 226. The opponent is really too strong, so strong that no matter how hard you think, you can't fight him. But what I'm thinking about now is that he can't fight against him in his normal state. There must be something weird about this UF. He is a huge doubt in that Human Research Institute building, and he has not shown up when I showed my true face. I could really feel that he was very jealous of me, otherwise he wouldn't have gone to great lengths to fight with me. Of course, the person fighting me might not be the UF itself, but its pilot. But this is not the time to think about this. I will try not to continue fighting with him before I know his details, or when I have no chance. Jia Yan finally came to the conclusion that he actually felt that there was something to gain in Qinghai Lake, that is, he got 2 pieces of the metal substance in his hands. This substance is still attracting Jia Yan, so it is certain that these 2 pieces of metal will definitely be beneficial to his next mutation. These 2 pieces of metal attract me no less than the original black liquid flow, so they can be used as the main introduction for my next mutation, and the rest of the basic mutated substances. Jia Yan was in the air, ignoring his injured wings and flying. The fierce look in the light in his compound eyes was extremely conspicuous. Seeing a UF that he couldn't fight no matter what he imagined, his attack made Jia Yan think that he couldn't fight, but it also inspired him to work harder to become stronger. He has already thought about the next journey. Using these 2 pieces of metal material as the main introduction, and then supplementing it with a large amount of another evolutionary material, as a basic material to assist evolution, put his next mutation on the agenda. As for the next evolved substance, isn't it obvious what it will be? That is, a large number of blue-gray pebbles in the body of the metal monster. He had originally planned to use the blue-gray pebbles as the main nutrient for his next mutation. And he had estimated that even if there were no other substances, as long as there were blue-gray pebbles, it would probably be enough for him to get the next mutation. But in that case, the effect of mutation may not be too obvious. That's why Jia Yan, after getting the information from the two killers, came to the shores of Qinghai Lake to look for the chance of his next mutation. But the opportunity was found. But the process was definitely not that smooth. There was actually an extremely powerful UF in this place. It almost cost Jia Yan his life. However, even if there were a few twists and turns, Jia Yan still achieved his goal of obtaining the main introduction to mutation, and he also became full of energy to move forward because of the UF's thrust. So what if he's strong now? A few months ago, Jia Yan was just a little mosquito that could be killed with a slap. He believes that he who has opened the door to mutation will one day reach a level where even this UF cannot be attacked and hurt. Jia Yan's compound eyes were faint. The luster flashes continuously. The speed of the big mosquito in the air is even faster. Head back south. After all, the weather in the north is still cold. Jia Yan's next idea is to fight a large number of metal monsters. In this case, he must find a favorable environment. It is impossible to fight those metal monsters in this cold place. And to the south. If your family needs help, they can go there nearby, which is also very convenient. So he is returning. This is the case with Qinghai Lake. But what Jia Yan didn't know was that not long after he left Qinghai Lake, an hour later. That's when he started flying at extremely high speed, flying over 700 kilometers in 1 hour, far away from this place of Qinghai Lake. A wave of human troops was rapidly approaching the place where the research institute was located. Each of these people has powerful technological weapons. Their code names cannot be found in the regular battle order of China, but their actual combat effectiveness is very terrifying. This is the equivalent of the most powerful secret force in China. The man who leads this unit. These are the Chinese military kings with whom Jia Yan once had a chance encounter. There are more than 1,000 of them in total, and their combat effectiveness is even more powerful than the air defense force that dealt with Jia Yan that night last time. The appearance of these people was originally to deal with the giant mosquito monster. Even if they could not kill it, they had to drive it away from this place. After all, this research institute is an absolutely secret and important place in China, and there are many important confidential things. So this secret force was called in. They carried a large number of advanced weapons. During the evaluation, it was confirmed that even if these weapons were unable to deal with the giant mosquito monster, they could drive the giant mosquito out of the boundaries of the research institute without fear of death. It can still be done. There is no other way for China to do this. I originally thought that the giant mosquito monster was just staying in the research institute for a period of time. In this case, it would not matter even if the research institute was suspended. After all, the Huaxia kingdom was already fighting a war with the metal monster. For the giant mosquito monsters, we really don't have the strength to deal with them anymore. But I didn't expect that the giant mosquito monster was so disrespectful. He didn't know what he was fighting in this research institute, but he actually refused to leave. If a battle begins near the research institute, what if the precious equipment and research objects inside are destroyed? That's why this army appeared. However, this army was almost composed of elite soldiers and generals. They never thought that just an hour before they arrived, the giant mosquito monster they were going to deal with had already fled this place in disgrace. And when this army arrived outside the ruins of the research institute, they saw the terrifying scene of blue-gray pebbles exploding, and everyone swallowed their saliva, extremely horrified. If this scene was caused by the giant mosquito monster, all of them might be wiped out. These are all elite soldiers, and their expressions are extremely embarrassing. But at this moment, a message came from the communication channel. The soldier who led the team, the king of soldiers, immediately changed his expression after hearing the communication sound on the radio. Obviously a little happy. After he listened, he said to the people around him, "Don't think so much. The giant mosquito was detected by radar just now. It is said that it left Qinghai Lake and flew to the south at a speed of about 700 kilometers per hour. Really?" Soldiers looked at the temporary commander. Although these people are the strongest soldiers in their respective armies, they are not as good as the kings of soldiers who lead the team. They were convinced. It was said that the so-called monster Yokota who had dominated the world for so many years died in their hands. So these people are convinced. But they don't know that Yokota did not die in the hands of these warrior kings at all, but in the hands of the giant mosquito monster they failed to deal with. It was just because the Chinese nation wanted to show off its military power, so Yokota's death was secretly revealed to the whole world as the result of several brave Chinese military kings joining forces to kill him. What a bunch of little bastards. So happy to know that the enemy is gone, the king of soldiers was actually happy too, but he still laughed and scolded these soldiers at this time. In fact, the giant mosquito monster has a good reputation in China recently, and it even fought against metal monsters in the south before. There were reports of events that indirectly saved many people, so they didn't really want to fight the giant mosquito monster. Moreover, the fighting power of giant mosquito monsters is also extremely powerful. If they really fight with giant mosquitoes, no one dares to imagine how many thousand people will die to complete the task of driving them away. But just when these elite soldiers are happy that they don't have to fight so hard. Look. What is that? A soldier who went to inspect the ruins suddenly pointed at an extremely huge golden thing in the collapsed ruins of a tall building and screamed. And just when the soldier pointed at that thing and shouted, "Boom boom boom!" a series of slightly faint white lights came from the dark corner where the thing was located. Suddenly burst into flames. Countless lights lit up at this time. These lights seemed to be very weak. If used to deal with the giant mosquito monster Jia Yan, it may not even be able to break through his outermost layer of cloth defense. But when used against humans, it is simply a very powerful weapon. The rays of light strangled these elite soldiers quickly. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! A group of Chinese elite soldiers who had already relaxed started shouting in a panic but not panic. This is. But when they saw it, when the thing slowly emerged from the darkness, everyone had the same look in their eyes as when Jia Yan saw it. Actually, the expressions of all the soldiers changed drastically. After all, is something that seems to be a myth and legend to people on Earth. But who would have thought that it would appear so alive before our eyes? Don't be afraid. This thing appears in the report. It is just a research object that has been studied. We can defeat him. Shoot. Shoot it down. The strong soldier king yelled in the intercom channel at this time. The faces of each soldier suddenly straightened up. No matter what, they are all the most outstanding beings in their own armies, and some are even strong contenders for the position of king of soldiers in the future. These brave warriors brought up the advanced weapons they brought with them one by one. A battle begins with this mysterious flying object that seems to have something wrong with it. As for the outcome of this battle, it only depends on the performance of the soldiers next. To be continued. The following does not count as money. Sorry, I haven't replied to everyone's messages in the past few days. In fact, I have read all the messages, but I just don't have time to reply to them all. I'm sorry, Bulletin U is working on a new book, so his energy is a little scattered. The new book has been decided to be released tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. The genre is no longer a thankless genre like Giant Mosquito, but a more popular urban genre. It describes the story of the protagonist named Han Yang, who has superpowers and uses them to fight and have adventures. The name of the main character is the name of the brother who is number 1 on the fan list of this book. He laughed and cried but forgot about it. Haha, I have already agreed with him. If you also want the character, you can read the new book when I open it. Just leave your name in the comment area over there and we will try our best to arrange it. Giant Mosquito is really difficult to arrange, there are too few characters. This giant mosquito will not end easily. 3 million words is the basic goal, and the ultimate goal is 5 million words. So everyone can rest assured that Bai Yushuankai's ability to write books is extremely strong. You don't have to worry about it affecting this book. Thank you. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Activate new URL. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 227. Jia Yan, who was nearly 1,000 kilometers away, could not imagine that where he was before, there was actually a human army fighting an unprecedented battle with him. Jia Yan couldn't guess what the outcome of this battle would be like at this time. Just flying towards your destination. The flight speed has slowed down. At this time, he is not as nervous as before. Even he feels a little tired from the rush along the way. At this time, Jia Yan maintained a speed of about 500 kilometers per hour. He was already used to this speed, so the endurance flight speed was 500 kilometers per hour, which was not tiring at all. Only after slowing down, Jia Yan could feel the defect in his right wing. His wings were completely penetrated by the pale white light, and it felt like a leaky airplane, with airflow leaking out from time to time. The pain was the same as the initial pain, but it wasn't that painful after that, and now I basically don't feel anything at all. But when flying, this defect is still quite serious. At this moment, Jia Yan felt that if his own wing-beating muscles were not so strong, he might not be able to fly. Not to mention flying at a speed of 500 kilometers per hour. But now Jia Yan is helpless at this time. This injury is already in the category of being unable to heal by himself. If he wants to be completely cured, he can only wait until the next mutation to repair it. The distant north and south of China, in the current view of Jia Yan, are not that far away. He can already maintain a flying speed of about 500 kilometers in an hour, so he is required to fly 3,000 kilometers at this time. It was only 6 or 7 hours. Yeah, Jia Yan suddenly saw fire rising into the sky in a city on the way to fly. He remembered that this place was a city in the middle of China. This city is also a relatively unknown small city in China. I didn't expect that such a big city would be attacked by metal monsters. Jia Yan's heart felt a little heavy. At this time, the mosquito could feel a strange sense of solemnity. He saw the mysterious queen in front. Looking at these metal monsters now, they all have a very mysterious feeling. He had no idea what the connection was with the metal monster. In short, he felt that there was a strange connection between them, but he just didn't know what the connection was, but he didn't think about it that much now. At this time, what he was thinking about was how to improve his strength. Seeing that, he desperately wanted to improve his strength, and the only way was to improve his strength. Only then can you protect yourself and your family when this metal monster and all kinds of strange things appear. From time to time, some miserable human cries came up from below. Jia Yan was flying more than 1,000 meters in the air, but he could still hear it. However, Jia Yan's compound eyes just flashed for a moment, and he had no idea of going to rescue him. At this time, he himself is the target of the metal monster. How can he save others? So it can only be said that he is helpless at this time. The body of the big mosquito glided quickly in the sky, but behind his flying figure, each metal monster raised its head, looking at the big mosquito in the distance in the night sky. This scene is very scary. If Jia Yan hadn't left this place, he would have been shocked when he saw the scenery below. But he didn't care so much. The battle with the metal monster would definitely begin next, so it was normal for him to hold a grudge against the other party. I just didn't expect that I would be remembered by the other party now. Jia Yan was flying in the sky, thinking about some questions. Along the way below, a huge wave of disaster has already formed. Countless Chinese civilians formed a wave of waves and evacuated towards a place they thought was safe. I don't know how many things happened on the way. In short, everything it's all so full of uncomfortable atmosphere. The big mosquito's eyesight is already very good, so at this time, he can always see some things that he doesn't want to see. For example, in a dark place, a man grabbed a fleeing woman and pushed her into the grass. The woman screamed, but her voice could not come out under the other man's suppression, so her struggle had no effect at all. Jia Yan had already noticed something strange here a few kilometers away, but the big mosquito still wanted to fly by. "Help!" This young female voice kept coming out from the grass. The mosquito's not too sensitive hearing had already heard the sound, but at this moment he found that the humans on the way seemed not to hear it. At most, some of them glanced in the direction of the woman, but the next moment he withdrew his gaze again. Jia Yan was slightly angry in his heart. The bad nature of human beings was fully revealed at this time, so he didn't care about this matter. After thinking about it, the big mosquito suddenly swooped down in the air. Poof! One of the giant mosquito's slender front legs stabbed directly into the head of the man behind the woman without missing a beat. Perhaps this person was not inferior to any serious crime that required death under the judgment of the law, but for the big mosquito, Yan, he doesn't pay attention to the law. At this time, he will kill if he wants. That man was happy when he was happy. For such a person, this kind of troubled times was the happiest thing. As for this girl, he had been paying attention to it for a long time during the day, and now he took action. This man had already violated many women under the attack of this metal monster. At this time, he was a lawless thug. Even if such a person survives, he will do more bad things in the future. Even killing someone is not impossible. So Jia Yan killed him, yes. This man had a happy expression, and he was only one step away from succeeding in seizing the girl he had been observing all day. But at this time, he only felt an unbearable force, which pierced his head directly from above. The man's eyes widened, and the happy expression still stayed on his face, but at this moment, he died. Blood splattered, and the human woman below was already in panic. She felt the blood contamination. When she looked up, she saw a huge creature right in front of her. That faint gaze seemed to be a monster that chose people to eat. It seemed that it would swallow her whole body in the next moment. It was not a strange thing. The girl suddenly let out a scream. Jia Yan didn't help the other party just because of her gratitude, so he just flapped his wings indifferently at this time. The big mosquito's body continued to fly. At this time, too many similar things happened. He just did this thing casually. For him, this thing was just a casual thing. I don't know whether I will remember it in the future. Not long after he took off again, this matter was forgotten and it didn't matter. But he didn't know that one action might change a person's life. The giant mosquito's strength and level at this time are already an existence that can easily change a human's life. Although to him, he is just a big mosquito, and things that can change other people's lives have no impact on him. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The big mosquito is flying fast in the air. The money of a young man below was robbed by several people. An old woman was blocked at the intersection by several people. Several men were attacking passers-by. These things were all seen at a glance, but Jia Yan didn't do anything to help. There are already too many such things. If he can help one by one, he will not go back to the south. He will just wait here until the metal monster comes and deal with him and these humans together. However, Jia Yan also saw many good things. For example, a middle-aged man saw an elderly man on the roadside unable to move, so he took the initiative to pick him up on his back, and then gave him his own food. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 228. There was also a wounded person who was carried and walked by several people. Those people obviously didn't know each other, but at this time they still worked together to help others. Jia Yan flew over these places, flying over the heads of every human being. The body of this big mosquito could always attract the attention of these various people. They looked at the giant mosquito flying above their heads and didn't know what to think. Maybe some were scolding the giant mosquito monster, and some were envious of the giant mosquito's ability to fly. Maybe there are humans here who have a good feeling for giant mosquito monsters. But the ideas of these people have nothing to do with Jia Yan now. He was just flying, and the humans below were just looking up. They envy the powerful mosquito that can fly, but does this giant mosquito also envy them as humans? No one knows about this, not even Jia Yan himself. If he was given a chance to become one of the tens of millions of refugees below, would he be willing to? In short, it's all just imagination. There are no ifs and there's nothing to think about. Jia Yan's first priority now is to become stronger as soon as possible. Compared with the central region of China that has just begun to become chaotic, the southern part of China has already been in a state of chaos. At this time, every city has a feeling of incomparable chaos. At this time, most of the land in China is still in human hands, but people fleeing are already everywhere. Some people really had their homes destroyed by metal monsters and had to flee as a last resort, but there were more people who started fleeing with their families just because of some random things. The uncertainty of metal monster attacks has caused these people to flee everywhere, but generally speaking, they are all like the Jia family, fleeing to the big cities of China at this time. Therefore, these big cities are also overcrowded at this time. Countless people gathered on the outskirts of the city. There was no way to get in. The people inside couldn't figure it out. This kind of chaos has been happening, and even large-scale fighting and casualties have begun to occur. Official power is no longer even controllable. Wherever there are people, there are rivers and lakes. And so many anxious refugees gathered together. Bloodshed and conflict are even harder to avoid. Events happen one after another, and things that are difficult to control appear one after another. Officials are all having a huge headache. And in Shanghai, an international metropolis on the coast of China, the city where Jia Yan left many traces in this place, the Jia family has been arranged by two killers. They moved into the humble building where they had settled before. Originally, the two killers were not planning to return to Shanghai City because this place was the headquarters of the Yu family. If this place was the predecessor they called it? Of course there is nothing to be afraid of, but if it were their words, it's still a bit dangerous. After all, at this time, not much time has passed since the death of the Yu family and his son. If the other party has just been looking for them, then if they were injured and brought the Jia family back to this place, it would be like throwing themselves into a trap. Fortunately, they didn't find any trace of the Yu family after returning to the Shanghai Stock Exchange for a day. This discovery made them feel a little more relaxed. After all, this is already a moment of national crisis in China. Even if the Yu family wants to seek revenge on them, they are still entangled with many things at this time and cannot make correct arrangements. Moreover, the current Yu family probably has a lot of troubles. The head of the family and the heir just died, and then a newly elected heir died in the Japanese country, and they didn't dare to go to identify the body or anything, so it must be the same at this time. Extremely confusing. So they also thought clearly that returning to Shanghai at this time was not as dangerous as they thought. After all, in Huaxia at this time, these big cities were indeed relatively safe. They did not expect that the house they had purchased for the convenience of their tasks would actually come into play at this time. If it had not been for this house, it would have been impossible for them to find a place to live in Shanghai at this time. The Jiao family lived above the two killers, on the fourth floor. They were very grateful to have a place to live. They finally understood how good these two killers were. At this time, they were just very curious as to who the mysterious man they were talking about was. Since this person asked them to take care of the Jiao family, he must have something to do with their Jiao family. However, after thinking about it for a long time, Jiao Sheng, Jia's father, still couldn't figure out who had this motive and ability. After all, the Jiao family lives in a remote corner of the city, and they are poor because they have no close neighbors. Some distant relatives have long lost contact, so Jia's father cannot think of who will still remember them, and that person people still have the means to get these two men, who are obviously not ordinary people, to help them. Compared to his parents' doubts, Jia Lin was much more relaxed. When he saw that he came to the city where he had also stayed before, he immediately started making trouble to go online. She is quite similar to her brother. When they are in a new place, they always want to surf the internet. However, the two brothers and sisters have the same purpose. Jia Lin wants to go online at this time just to contact her sister who is not far away. When Jia Lin was wandering around the city, it was that sister who helped her and allowed her to live in vain for so long. She was simply an excellent person. When the two killers turned on the internet, the high school girl immediately put aside the hard work of long distances. Opened his laptop. Because of some study problems, when she returned to her city from Shanghai, her mobile phone and other communication tools were put away by her parents. Although it doesn't mean that I have completely stopped using the internet, it does mean that I haven't used it for a long time. As soon as she opened her QQ, the girl immediately discovered that a stranger had found her through her number. The reason for applying was, "Is this Jia Lin?" When Jia Lin saw the reason for the application, she immediately knew that this person knew her. However, she opened the other person's information and found that there was nothing about this person except his gender and his online name Changwen. At this time, there were already many people on the internet whose names were related to the giant mosquito, so the girl didn't think too much about it. After thinking about it, since this person knew her name and was probably an acquaintance, she easily approved the application. She might never have dreamed that the person who joined her was her own brother, that person who was already dead. But now her brother is a reborn mosquito monster, and the giant mosquito race that countless people in the world are talking about is actually just her reborn brother playing several roles. This huge giant mosquito race. As for adding the little sister's QQ number, Jia Yan thought about the safety of his family when he was near Tanchinj some time ago, so he added the little sister's QQ number. However, he didn't know that the little sister no longer had a mobile phone, but fortunately at that time, the news of the two killers came out, and he didn't lose his family in the vast crowd of people fleeing. It's been a long time now, and the girl who is finally online, and only then did she pass Jia Yan's friend request. Sister Xiaoqi is online. I just wanted to chat with her. After Jia Lin added Jia Yan's number, she put the matter aside. When she saw that the familiar big sister's profile picture was still on among her friends, she was very happy and sent the message. Xiao Lin, are you okay? I was so worried about you in Shanghai. I hung up the phone and called your home several times, but no one answered. News came from the other side that the woman named Xiaoqi was obviously very happy to see Jia Lin online. In fact, this matter has something to do with the parents of the Jia family. When they came to Shanghai to pick up their daughter, they saw that this girl Xiaoqi was not a girl with a serious career, although she did help her daughter. She is a good girl, but if she continues to date Jia Lin in the future, it will be bad if she leads Jia Lin astray. Poor parents in the world, so Jialin was under the strict supervision of her parents and could not continue to contact the elder sister she knew in Shanghai. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 229. The two girls are now in contact, which is beyond the expectations of the two elders of the Geo family, but Xiaoqi obviously already knows what the Geo family is thinking. Even if she talks to Jialin at this time, she is as far away as possible. It's just that Jialin doesn't know this at all. She is still very close to this big sister as before, talking about what happened since they haven't seen each other these days. A few kilometers away, this place is also Shanghai, but this is no longer the basement rental house where Jialin once stayed. Xiaoqi was smiling and sending her messages one by one. But not long after, a big hand stretched out and snatched the phone from her hand. "Who are you messaging? The police." The owner of that big hand was a man with a sinister face. This man was holding a pistol in his hand. At this time, this place was full of girls. These girls were wearing scantily clad clothes, and some had tear stains on them. "Oh, it's a girl. You haven't contacted the police, so you're wise, but even if you contact the police, it's useless. These police are so busy right now, how can they have time to care about the life and death of you bitches?" The man's face was slightly mocking. But when the phone was in his hand, it suddenly shook slightly. "Your little sister said that she is in Shanghai? Xiaoqi, tell me, is she a beautiful little girl?" "Forget it, you don't need to say it. I'll send you a message and ask her to come over. We just have an interview here, haha." This man avoided Xiaoqi, whose face changed wildly and was about to grab the phone, and then sent a message with a sinister smile. "Xiaolin, I am now at number 479 Dongguan Road. Are you free to come and see me this afternoon? I would like to meet you." Jialin's computer suddenly received such a message. "Sister Xiaoqi asked me to come over and meet her. That's right. We haven't seen each other for so long. I miss Sister Xiaoqi too." Saw this news. Jialin had no doubts. She began to prepare for the meeting. For Jialin at this time, she had never thought about the possibility of her sister Xiaoqi betraying her, so she directly wanted to meet her at this time, and at this time, she could not even imagine what would happen next. It will be like that. It didn't take long for Jialin to be ready. "When I was in Shanghai. That is, that sister Xiaoqi once taught her some simple makeup, and after returning to her hometown, she learned to do makeup by herself. Her parents thought she was a girl, but they didn't say anything about her. So much so that when this girl was in her hometown, her makeup skills got even better. But she didn't think about anything else when she learned makeup skills, just because she was in Shanghai. This sister Xiaoqi had laughed at her many times, saying that her makeup was ugly. So this girl can be said to be learning makeup skills just for this time. Look, she just wants her sister Xiaoqi. I learned more about makeup techniques in this way." While the little girl was getting ready to go out, she was humming a song that probably no one could understand except herself. But you can feel her current happy mood from this song. The time finally arrived in the afternoon. During lunch, the Jia family noticed that Jialin was wearing makeup, and Jia's father couldn't help but ask, "Xiaolin, why are you wearing this makeup?" Jialin's expression was stagnant. She knew that her parents didn't think very highly of her sister Xiaoqi. When she returned to her hometown, she had said negative things about her sister Xiaoqi in secret many times. So she didn't know if it would be better to just say it. "Dad, I want to go out for a while in the afternoon, okay?" Jialin didn't answer directly, she just asked. "At this time, where do you want to go? I don't understand what you are thinking. At this time of war and chaos, you want to run around again. Do you want your mother and I to come to Shanghai to look for you again in the future?" "Father Jia, I couldn't eat anymore, so I walked outside angrily." Jialin in the room was stunned for a moment, unable to say anything. As a child with a criminal record, she could not say that when she was in Shanghai, she was out to avenge her brother. Or should I say, if she told her, it would make her parents even more worried. So as a girl with that dark history, she was a very rebellious child in the eyes of her father. However, after returning to her hometown, her rebelliousness subsided a little, so her parents no longer complained about her. Jialin looked up at her father, who was walking out of the door with some grievance, and her mouth became flat. After arriving at this house, the two killers were separated from their families. The Jiao family lived their own lives, and the two killers lived their own lives. The Jiao family was naturally very grateful to the two killers, but they were rejected when they were invited to dinner a few days ago, and they did not say anything similar after that. At noon, a pretty little figure walked out of the room quietly. This girl has a little baby fat on her face, and she is a cute girl. She is Jialin. After looking at the room where her parents were resting and not hearing anything, the little girl knew that both her parents were still a little tired after days of hard work. After all, her father had limited legs and feet, and it was Jiamu who had to bear more of the burden along the way, so they both rather tired. Jialin looked at her parents' room and found nothing unusual, then quietly walked out of the building. The two killers who lived on the third floor happened to be away from home, so when the girl walked out of the house, no one noticed at all. Sister Zyuki won't harm me, she just wants to meet me. The little girl made a plan to go out to meet them quickly, and then go home while her parents were still resting. This would be the best thing. Thinking of this, she took out the phone. Sister Zyuki, where are you? I've already gone out. Hey. I've really moved somewhere. Okay, I'll go there. Jialin hung up the phone and walked on the street. The girl didn't even notice that the formerly peaceful Shanghai city was now filled with a tense atmosphere. After getting on the bus, the girl left. Not long after, the two killers took a very ordinary-looking van and returned to the small building from the pickup station. No, the device I put here has been destroyed. I don't know if someone went out or entered the small building. Be careful. The young man wearing glasses suddenly changed his expression when he was outside the small building. As qualified killers, these two people actually pay great attention to safety issues. When I went out before, the young man wearing glasses set up a very hidden thread outside this small building. If you don't pay attention, no matter who goes in or out of this small building, you will destroy this thread. So at this time he immediately judged that either someone had gone out of the small building, or someone had entered the small building. The bearded man's expression also changed. It would be good if only the Jiao family in this house left, but if the Yu family came at this time, the safety of the Jiao family would be a problem. The two of them entered the small building very vigilantly. They made tactical moves and walked into the floors of the building one by one. It didn't take long to the expressions of the two men finally returned to normal. They checked and found that there was no sign of anyone entering, but that someone had gone out. After the two of them called up the surveillance cameras in their rooms, they both frowned slightly again. The person who went out was actually the little girl from the Jiao family. What was she doing out there alone? Do the Jiao family's parents know about this? The two of them immediately rushed to the fourth floor. What? That girl went out by herself, this. Jia's mother was stunned when she heard the news that Jialin left alone. This daughter was simply unruly, and she didn't know what to say. Don't be anxious. Although Shanghai is relatively chaotic at this time, basic security is still there. Xiaoao and I will go out to look for it together. You guys stay in the small building and wait for news about us. If you really can't find it, go call the police. After the bearded man said something to the young man wearing glasses, they both said a few good words to the second elder of the Jiao family, and then continued to leave. There's another chapter coming soon. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bullet in You. Chapter 230. Wait a minute, I think this damn girl is going to meet the sister she met in Shanghai. She seems to be named Xiaoqi. Jia's father stood at the door and told the news. Xiaoqi, right? We know it. Okay, we will definitely get her back, you don't have to worry. The two killers walked out of the small building with great confidence. They really didn't think much about it now. After all, Jia Lin was just looking for someone she knew before, and it wasn't anything dangerous. In fact, both of them knew this. The little girl once went to Shanghai alone and wanted revenge. For such a strong and brave girl, they didn't think there would be any danger now. And what the two elders of the Jia family didn't know was that they were the two people who hung up the phone and asked them to pick up their daughter from that Xiaoqi, so they knew where that Xiaoqi lived. The two got into the car, feeling helpless that it was busy again, but this time there shouldn't be any danger, so it was quite relaxing. The periphery of Shanghai at this time. A huge figure suddenly flew over in the roaring wind. Some refugees who fled to the city but were told that they could not enter the city gathered one by one outside the city. They saw the monster coming from high in the sky. Giant mosquito. Look, this is the giant mosquito monster mentioned on the internet and on TV. Someone suddenly shouted from below. Each of those people raised their heads in surprise, and some were nervous, fearing that this so-called giant mosquito monster with very powerful combat power would attack them at this time. Others were so nervous that they took out their mobile phones to take pictures of giant mosquitoes. Jia Yan was flying in the air, and his right wing had a damage of more than 10 centimeters, so flying at this time felt a bit uncontrollable. He was already used to the crowd below. He didn't deliberately conceal his figure along the way, and he didn't know how many people he encountered making noisy comments. The body of the giant mosquito is still flying forward. Jia Yan wanted to fly directly to Shanghai City, but Huaxia obviously would not give him this opportunity. Not that close to the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Jia Yan was intercepted by a fighter jet again just a few dozen kilometers away from Shanghai City last time. It seemed to be the advanced J-20 fighter again. The pilot of this fighter seemed to be an old friend when he met Jia Yan. He even gave a slight salute. The giant mosquito monster has been trending online for a while, as the pilot appears as a character flying through the sky. After knowing that this giant mosquito monster could fight against the Japanese F-15s and destroy two of them, he was very interested in this giant mosquito monster, and after he further conducted research on the giant mosquito, it seems that something has been discovered, that is, this giant mosquito monster seems to have some wisdom. After all, a series of battles with giant mosquito monsters. If you study it carefully, it is not difficult to see the kind of tactics and combat wisdom contained in it. So although others don't agree with him very much, at least this pilot still believed that this giant mosquito monster race was able to communicate. The giant mosquito last time seemed to be the same one in front of me. At that time, the other party retreated very wisely. Isn't this a manifestation of wisdom? At this time, he saluted the giant mosquito precisely because he thought the other party was wise, so he did so. This guy is quite interesting. He even saluted me. Jia Yan had very good eyesight. When the combat power flew past him, he saw the pilot's movements. He, Jia Yan, shouldn't go too far if he's giving face like this, right? So at this time, after Jia Yan paused for a moment, he also made a U-turn to save face and flew in the opposite direction to the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Command Center, did you see that? This giant mosquito really understood me and left. The pilot looked very excited in the air, and his movements of flying the J-20 made a beautiful tumble. It seems that this proves what he said, the giant mosquito is the reason for communication. However, there was no response from the command center to what this flying expert said. They just warned him that he needed to pay attention to the movements of this giant mosquito monster. Jia Yan didn't really want to enter the Shanghai Stock Exchange. He knew that if he wanted to enter such a large international metropolis, it would definitely cause panic among humans, so he just left honestly. For him, generally speaking, there are still ways to keep in touch with family members in the Shanghai stock market. That's the internet. It happened that I was a little tired after flying for such a long time. After all, one of the wings was damaged. The amount of energy he expended at least doubled. So after Jia Yan got rid of the J-20, he simply avoided the eyes of most people. After flying for half an hour, he flew to a small village far away from Shanghai and descended. There were not many people in this village. Jia Yan took a look and made sure that no one followed him to the forest near the village. He took away the laptop bag that had attracted a lot of attention along the way. Come down. There should still be internet in this place, so Jia Yan just opened the laptop. Huh? My little sister applied through my friend list. After logging into his QQ account, the first system message Jia Yan saw was the news that his younger sister Jia Lin had passed the verification of his friend. At this time, Jia Lin was still on the bus. She was playing with her phone while sitting in the bus. As a girl who has just been released from her parents' mobile phone ban, he is very happy now. Hello, my name is Chang Gwen, are you Jia Lin? Suddenly, the girl saw this message. She remembered that when she logged in before, such a person had added her as a friend. Zhongwen feels like a fan of giant mosquitoes. Thinking of this, the girl had a good impression of this person. After all, she and the giant mosquito monster seemed to be quite connected, so seeing a giant mosquito lover, naturally she also had a good impression. But this person knew her name and must be an acquaintance. Hello, I'm Jia Lin, who are you? Jia Lin asked curiously. In a mountain village far away from Shanghai, Jia Yan saw this reply from his little sister. It was obviously just a very simple words, and his heart tightened. The feeling was really hard to describe. After being reborn for so long, it seemed that this was the first time he really had a conversation with his little sister. At this time, he felt a little emotional. However, Jia Yan quickly finished his words. He understood that in the eyes of his little sister, he was just a new netizen and a stranger, so he did not dare to say anything else. I'm your brother's good friend in college. Your brother used to talk about you a lot, so now I've added you as a friend. I want to ask how you are doing lately. Jia Yan thought for a while and typed out these words. Oh, he's my brother's friend in college. Why did you come to join me at this time? It's been several months. Jia Lin was sitting on the bus, and these words brought back her memories of her brother. Looking underneath the bus, at the city where my brother lived before his death, I suddenly felt a little pain. At this time, Jia Lin looked at Jiuyuan with a sad expression on the bus, which was very endearing. But at this time in Shanghai, people are having a hard time protecting themselves. Who would pay attention to the pain of this lovely girl? So at this time, the little girl had to learn to swallow all the sadness of the memories by herself. Sorry, I haven't heard my brother talk about you, so I don't know you. Jia Lin responded very vigilantly. In fact, the subconscious mind of this sentence is that I don't want to say anything to this so-called worm article. An ordinary boy would naturally be a little bit shocked, but when Jia Yan saw her reply, not only was he not shocked, he was actually a little relieved. My little sister has really grown up. If she is so vigilant, she will be able to protect herself well in the future. However, he didn't want to be deleted by his little sister, so he typed a reply, Jia Yan should have mentioned me before. I am his classmate in the dormitory next door to the university. My name is Li Ran. Have you heard him say that? To be completed, continued, enable new URL. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 231. The previous chapter was 23, but I published it as 2 chapters with 22, so this chapter is 24. Jia Yan didn't talk about his classmates in the same dormitory because he was afraid that they would really contact his little sister. If he was in the next dormitory, he remembered that he also told his little sister the jokes about these people. As for whether the little sister remembered it, only God knows about this classmate named Li Ran. "Oh, I remember, it seems that my brother mentioned you, hello." Jia Lin replied there and actually remembered this person named Li Ran. "This guy seems to have been mentioned by my brother. He is a person who goes crazy after drinking. One time his head fell into the toilet. Haha." Thinking of this name, Jia Lin just laughed. If this person wasn't so ridiculous, she would. I can't remember so much. The two brothers and sisters chatted for a few more words. Jia Yan was naturally enjoying the fun of chatting with his little sister, but Jia Lin opposite him felt more and more strange the more he chatted with her. What's going on with this guy? Chatting with him really feels like chatting with a brother. Could it be that the boys' dormitory is so close that even their personalities are similar? But that's not right. I have also contacted my brother's classmates who are in the same dormitory, but I don't think they have a similar personality to my brother. The girl was tilting her head, thinking about this question. It's really strange. This person feels so much like his brother when chatting with him. She wanted to ask this question. But at this moment, the bus suddenly made a broadcast sound. It turns out that we have arrived at that Dongguan Road. Jia Lin quickly forgot about replying and got out of the car. After getting out of the car, Jia Lin looked at the road in front of her and immediately flinched. This place looked like a mixed road. I don't know what it was like before, but now there are many people walking on the street who don't look like good people. She hesitated and looked at the house numbers of nearby houses. But I didn't see the building I was going to. After thinking for a while, she didn't know what she was thinking and picked up the phone. Send a message to the worm text you are chatting with. Are you familiar with Shanghai? Do you know where 479 Dongguan Road is? I'm on Dongguan Road. But I can't find this place. When Jia Yan, who was far away in a small mountain village, saw this message from his little sister, his compound eyes suddenly froze. Dongguan Road, when he was in school. I knew that place was a famous so-called red light district. He was keen and discovered what was wrong with this. What are you doing there? Jia Yan quickly sent such a message. The little girl over there saw the news. His brows furrowed slightly. What happened to this person? He thought he was his brother's friend. Is it okay to talk to yourself in this tone? Her little mouth pouted. It was just a casual question. So I just stopped replying at this time. If you don't teach me, I can find it myself. She muttered, then put the phone away. And Jia Yan in the small mountain village over there. After not seeing the message, 2 consecutive messages were sent. But neither of these 2 messages received an answer from Jia Lin. His heart sank a little. He couldn't tell what was going on with his little sister, so he looked again and saw the QQ link between the 2 killers online. Click on the chat box immediately. What happened? Why did Jia Lin run away to Dongguan Road? As for the 2 killers, they didn't notice that the senior was already online. At this time, they drove to the home of the Xiaoqi they remembered before, which was the basement house. The car was still driving halfway when the bearded man heard a beep from his cell phone. When he opened it, he looked unhappy. Xiaoao, don't go over there. She went to Dongguan Road. Let's go there quickly. The van turned around. Naturally, they definitely believed what the senior said, and the other party was the one who asked them to protect the Geo family. How could they send a bad message to the Geo family? The young man wearing glasses was driving, and the bearded man here told Jia Yan what happened. It was a very simple process. After all, it was just a matter of a former sister wanting to see Jia Lin. But Beard's next words made Jia Yan unable to sit still. The Dongguan roadside has been in chaos for a long time now. I remember a few days ago, a gang controlled many women there, making money and selling sex for them. I just don't know if Jia Lin's sister is there too. If so, Jia Lin is also in danger, but we will go over and solve this problem. When Jia Yan saw this, his huge body couldn't help but stand up. He had been worried about similar things before, but he didn't expect that his little sister Jia Lin would actually encounter such a situation. A gang in such troubled times is not easy to deal with. It's not enough to leave them all to the two of them. Even if they can rescue people, the favor they owe is too great. Thinking of this, the faint light in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even brighter. He found a place, hid the notebook, and then spread his wings in this place. Hoo ho ho. After a moment, the big mosquito's body flew up. The scorching sun above our heads is still shining, bringing a little warmth to this winter. The big mosquito was bathed in the sunshine and rushed towards the Shanghai Stock Exchange. This time he didn't come close and then return. Just want to enter Shanghai. It is still the place 30 kilometers away from Shanghai. A J-20 flew head-on. Its body is no longer so cautious, or in other words, the pilot above has completely believed that this big mosquito is an intelligent and friendly monster. But now in this place, it is a routine matter, like a friendly exchange. This driver was the same one in the morning. When he saw the big mosquito and it was in a far-away place, he raised his arms and saluted him. He thought that this time it would be like the morning. When he finished saluting, the big mosquito would just turn around, and then his flight mission would end. After all, it was like this the previous 2 times, and he was beaten by his own squadron. My comrades nicknamed me the Giant Mosquito Liaison. The Giant Mosquito Liaison isn't so bad at all. This is what the pilot thought. In this routine incident, the other party will definitely understand my difficulties and return immediately. However, the development of things was a bit beyond the pilot's expectation. After seeing the familiar J-20, the big mosquito's body still didn't slow down and rushed forward. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The body of the big mosquito drew a slender straight line in the air. Even when it passed the J-20, it directly exceeded the speed of sound, leaving a sonic boom cloud in place. What's going on? The pilot was still doing the salute, and he was stunned when he looked at the big mosquito that was still rushing towards Shanghai. You're stupid, hurry up and chase me. At this time, the contact radio station finally heard the words from above. There was anxiety in these words. Although the giant mosquito monster has always been a positive monster, there were many reports of battles with human armies in the Japanese country. If the giant mosquito monster breaks into the densely populated area of Shanghai this time, it will don't know what will happen. So the people on the podium were also nervous. 2 more J-11s took off together. And at this time, the pilot who values the peace of the giant mosquito feels as if he is being played by the giant mosquito. I just said that you can communicate, and you did this to me. It was a slap in the face. So he quickly raised his fighter plane and quickly caught up from behind. The J-20's fighter performance is extremely outstanding among modern fighters, even compared to the F-15 that Jia Yan encountered before. It can even be said to be far beyond. But this outstanding performance has no change at all against the giant mosquito Jia Yan. In other words, as long as it is a fighter piloted by humans, the shortcomings are the same for Jia Yan. He is so flexible. Even if it is an excellent fighter, its flexibility must comply with the maximum overload force that humans can withstand, so when Jia Yan waits for the opponent to speed up and catch up, it is a disguised form. The head turned 360 degrees in an instant in the air.